I watched Vox Lux. Vox Lux is the second feature directed by Brady Corbet. You've seen him in some Michael Haneke films, some Lars von Trier films. This is his second feature he's directed. First one was Childhood of a Leader, which I actually haven't seen, I've got to be honest, and I do want to check it out because it got very good reviews when it came out. So his second feature, starring Natalie Portman as Celeste, a pop icon. This film really wants to be audacious. Audacious in the ways that the directors that Brady Corbet's worked with in the past, like Haneke and von Trier, is audacious. And I think that is the clearest thing I can say about this film going into it. And it was clear from the outset that it was all about being audacious with what he was making. And I think that he absolutely 100% failed in that regard. He said in a recent interview with The Guardian that he believes that form is the content. And I think that really does ring true, but probably not in the positive way he hopes it does. Everything about this film wants to be iconic, and he said this film is about wanting to be iconic. Maybe there's some strange postmodern irony in the fact that he himself seems to really want to be iconic, just like the star of this film, Celeste, and he falls really quite short of the mark of what he's doing with this film. It opens with a tragic school shooting in which the 14-year-old Celeste is witness, one of the only people in her classroom to survive this school shooting. It's brutal, it's bloody, it's violent, and it's a setup that you think this is going to be consistently returned to in a satisfying way, because this child has been through this horrific ordeal, so that's going to shape her future experience. But what it ends up feeling like is just a half-baked narrative way of pushing the plot forward. And this is the way that Celeste gets noticed by people, because she writes a song with her sister as a tribute to her classmates and her teachers that have died in the shooting. So that ends up being this point at the beginning which isn't ever really returned to in a proper way. Don't even get me started on the voiceover. So Willem Dafoe is voicing over this film, not sure why. He turns up momentarily in the film with these really overwritten voiceover parts, and it's shocking. I think it has to be very well judged if you're going to put a voiceover into your film, and it works sometimes. It works with The Big Lebowski, it works with Fight Club, it works with Goodfellas, and any kind of hard-boiled Raymond Chandler detective fiction film. But for most of the time, if you're going to put a voiceover in, it often feels as if there was no other way to get the story across through the characters and the script you've written. And it felt to me watching this like, oh, none of this actually hangs together. We need a voiceover here to clear everything up, to explain to the audience what Celeste is feeling, to explain how she went from one section of the film where she's 14 years old to the section where she's 31 years old all of a sudden, and now a very successful singer pop star. And it felt lazy in the worst kind of way. And those audacious attempts really start pushing themselves in quite early on. So you have Act 1, Genesis. You have a third act called Coda or Finale. And you have the intro has the credits in it. So we have the scroll at the beginning with a long sort of far away shot, a long shot of a car going down a freeway, and Celeste being taken to the hospital after the shooting. It all just feels incredibly style over substance, which apparently that's what Brady Corbet likes to do. So maybe he did succeed in what he wanted to do, but not very satisfying for a viewer, I have to say. The score was written by Scott Walker. Scott Walker, the incredible late Scott Walker. I'm a massive fan of him myself, and I'll eventually do a big guide to him on the Deep Cuts channel. And his score is beautiful, but it's underutilized, and there's these piercing moments of dramatic strings and tension, but they're not there enough to feel like a component of the film. They just feel as if they're scattered across the film to create emotive punches in places that it's needed, because the script isn't good enough to hold any of the narrative together. It's all just hanging down. I found it a very frustrating watch from start to finish because of that. There's two other moments of terrorism in the film. So after the school shooting, there's Celeste and her sister's reaction to 9/11, and then there's a shooting in Croatia where the shooters wear the masks from Celeste's previous tour, and that's how they bring that back around to Celeste. And it feels as if Corbet is trying to somehow connect terrorism acts with pop music, and maybe that's what he's trying to do when he talks about it's about trying to be iconic. But it feels so draped over these ideas. It's good to have concepts, and it's good to tease those concepts. You don't necessarily want to just put everything right to the forefront and make it obvious, because that's not always that satisfying to watch. But this just felt so half-baked in its ideas and its execution, but that real need to be dazzling and audacious, just a real abject failure, I think. And a shame, because Natalie Portman's performance is very good throughout this film. People have been saying it's probably her best performance since Black Swan. Maybe it is. I mean, she's only really in half the film, because the first half is about Celeste when she's younger. Yeah, just a really disappointing film.